Hi and welcome to the Malat Cookery channel. So today's recipe is pizza cones, a real blast from the past for me because I haven't done these for absolutely years. So pizza cones, one of those recipes that you think you've invented yourself until you look on the internet and find out that someone did it years before you even thought of it. So when our children were really small, feeding them pizzas became a bit of a struggle for them to eat. So what we had to do was cut the pizza into triangles and then roll the pizza up so they could eat it a lot easier. And I was looking at these pizzas one day and thought, do you know what, that looks just like an ice cream cone. So I came up with the idea of producing pizza cones. They absolutely loved it. They're really easy to do. And I thought, well, I wonder if I can produce these commercially. Went on the internet and found out that someone was already producing them in the USA. Anyway, this is a really good recipe. It's great for the kids, especially now we're still in this lockdown, this coronavirus lockdown. The kids must be getting really bored. The thing about this recipe is it teaches them cooking skills. There's also a little bit of arts and crafts going on as well. And at the end of it, the reward is some really delicious food, so it's perfect for the kids. The spice blend we're going to be using from the Malat range is their Italian seasoning. And if you don't have access to the Malat range of spice blends, then you can use a ready-made pizza sauce for this particular recipe. As usual, a full list of ingredients will be given at the end, so let's have a look at those ingredients now and anything else we're going to need for today. So the ingredients and kit we're going to need for today, we'll start with the pizza dough. So we're making a very basic pizza dough, 350 grams of bread flour, a teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of sugar, 7 grams sachet of Easy Bake dried yeast, 200 milliliters of water, so this is just tepid water, just lukewarm. Now that's only a guide, you may need more, you may need slightly less. We're going for quite a well hydrated dough for this particular recipe, so we'll just go through, see how much water we actually need, but 200 milliliters is just a rough guide. And we're going to need 3 tablespoons of olive oil. So for the pizza cone filling, I've got 120 grams of mature cheddar cheese, which I've grated, 120 grams of mild pepperoni, which I've cut into small pieces. We've got 150 grams of passata sauce, 5 grams of Malat Italian seasoning, about 4 or 5 small button mushrooms, which I've sliced, 1 large red bell pepper, which I've sliced quite thinly, a tablespoon of tomato puree, and a small pack of mozzarella cheese, which I'm going to slice thinly for the top. So we also need to make some temporary mould in order to form the pizza dough around to make the cone. So for that, I've got a small plate, so this is 20 centimetre diameter plate. And we're just going to draw around that. Got a pencil to do the circle around the plate, pair of scissors, some sellotape, some kitchen foil, and some card to make the templates. So ironically, this is just the outer box of a bought-in supermarket pizza. So you need about 3 to 4 of those cards, depending on how many pizza cones you're going to be making. So the first thing we need to do is make our pizza dough. So for this small amount of pizza dough, I'm going to be mixing it by hand. So we just need to add all of the dry ingredients together first. So in goes the yeast, sugar, and the salt, and just make sure that's all well combined. Okay, next thing to do is to add the olive oil. Make sure you get all of that olive oil off the spoon. You now want to work the olive oil in by hand and just create almost like a fine breadcrumb. Okay, so once we get the flour mixture to this kind of stage, we then want to add our lukewarm or tepid water, a little bit at a time. And we're after, as I said before, quite a well hydrated dough. So once the dough forms, it should be quite tacky, a little bit difficult to work with. If the dough comes away from your hands quite easily, then it's not hydrated enough, or there's not enough water in there, so just add a little bit more water to it. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about, this slightly tacky dough, a little bit uncomfortable to work with. Don't worry about the dough that's on your hands, that's going to come off. So the next thing we want to do is just a little bit of flour, not too much, on a work surface. What we're going to be doing is kneading this dough now for 10 minutes. Unfortunately, you can't get away from that. If you don't knead the dough enough, it's not going to be, the gluten strands are not going to be strong enough, and you're going to end up with quite a poor pizza dough at the end of it. So if you want to see techniques on how to knead dough, then just look at some of the other videos on the Malat YouTube channel regarding pizzas and bread making. Well, there are plenty of videos on YouTube. Okay, so at the end of that 10 minutes, your dough should be nice and elasticated, a real good feel to it. So I've not introduced too much dough to this, too much flour to this dough. Kept some flour in reserve at the back if I needed it, but mainly I've been kneading the dough on a unfloured surface. Your dough should still be quite tacky. Let's see how it's clinging on. So the next thing to do is just shake the dough. Just turn it under itself. Now the bowl I used to mix the dough in, I've just rinsed that out and then give it a light coating of olive oil just to stop the dough from sticking. Place that into the centre. Now I'm going to cover this with food wrap, place it into a warm part of the house to allow it to proof and double in size. So while our pizza dough is proofing, we can make the temporary stands to form our pizza cones with. So we've got our piece of card on our plate. All I want to do is just draw around the plate like that, and now I'm just going to cut that out, that circle out. Okay, so once we've got our circle of card, the next thing to do is to fold it in half. Just like that. And now we just want to cut it in half. Okay, so once we've got this, we just need to fold these two over to create a cone, and then keep forming the cone until this edge is directly opposite this edge. like that. So the diameter of this should be around 7 centimeters. Then we just want to put some sellotape over and run some sellotape down this seam as well. Okay, so that's the first part of the pizza cone done. Next thing to do is we just want to snip off this sharp tip. So otherwise, when we put because we're going to be putting some kitchen foil over the top of this, if you've got that sharp tip on there, the sharp tip will just go straight through the kitchen foil. So what we want to do is to get to that stage with 3 of the circles. So we're going to be making 6 of these pizza cone molds. So once we've got to this stage, we now need to cover the card in some kitchen foil. And just fold that over. And that's it. So we want to repeat that process for 6 of these cones. So 3 circles, cut them in half, and then do the same to each one. Okay, so that's the last one. So once we have our pizza cone forms or molds, whatever you want to call them, the next thing to do is to make the filling for the pizza cones themselves. So to make our filling for the pizza cones, I've got the saucepan over a medium heat with 3 tablespoons of olive oil, just bringing that up to temperature now. I'm going to add in our bell pepper. I just want to cook this through for a couple of minutes. Next goes in the mushrooms, and again I'm just going to be frying these for a couple of minutes just to get them to soften up and some colour to them. Okay. Next the pepperoni. Again a couple of minutes frying. Okay, so next goes in the tomato puree. If you're using a ready-made pasta sauce for this bit, then this is when you would add that. And we just want to cook this tomato puree through for about a minute. Next in goes the passata. And the Malat Italian seasoning. I'm just going to cook this now for 3 or 4 minutes and then the filling's done. Okay, so once the filling's done, just going to reserve this in a bowl, keep it warm until we need it. Okay, so the next step, once the pizza dough has doubled in size, I'm going to weigh this dough now and then split it into 6 equal parts. Okay, so once we've got our 6 pieces, and these are roughly 100 grams each, I'm going to show you what to do with one, and then obviously we repeat this process for all 6. I just want a little bit of flour on the work surface. Now I'm just going to roll out this piece of dough as round as I can get it to about 2 millimeters thick. so quite thin. Okay, so once we've got the piece of dough to about this size, we take one of the tin foil cones that we made earlier, try and get this as central as possible over the top, but without the point actually going through, and then just squeeze this in until it forms to the silver foil cone. Any creases like that, just press them in. Okay, so that's what we should have. All of the creases just pushed in as flat as possible around the bottom. Place that onto a baking sheet. Put some cling film or food wrap around it. Just loosely. And then move on to the next one. Obviously do this for all 6. Okay, so once all 6 cones are done, they're going to go back into a warm part of the house to proof for a second time, but this time only for 30 minutes. In 20 minutes time, I'm going to put the oven on to 190 degrees centigrade, so once these have gone through that half an hour proofing, the oven will be up to temperature. Right, so the cones have now gone through this second proofing for half an hour. The oven's on 190 degrees centigrade. So the only thing we need to do now is to take off the cling film or food wrap. And then the cones are going into this preheated oven for 7 minutes. And the thing we're trying to achieve with this first bake is just to get some firmness on the outside of the cone so that the cone will actually stand on its own without the need for being over this foil form. Okay, so as I said, into the oven now for 7 minutes. Right, so that's our 7 minutes up. As I said, the initial bake is just to get this outside a little bit firm so they hold the shape. Next thing to do is I'm just going to leave these to cool slightly and then take out the foil inners from the pizza cones. Okay, so once we've separated the pizza cones from the foil inner, I'll show you what the next step is. I'll show you with one, and then obviously we repeat this process for all 6. So we take the inner that we used initially with the pizza cone and then just cut it in half with a strong pair of scissors. Just like that. Then place the pizza cone inside like that. Okay, so we then build up layers, so we put some of our filling in. A little bit of our mature cheddar cheese. Some more filling. Cheddar cheese, and just keep doing that until you get near to the top. And then once you're at the top, last layer of grated mature cheddar cheese. Some mozzarella. And then we move on to the next one. Okay, so once these are done, really carefully now back into the oven for a further 10 minutes. So there you go, pizza cones, absolutely delicious, fantastic to get the kids involved with as well, they'll absolutely love it. Please subscribe to the channel, and as usual, if you've enjoyed this particular video, hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching, we really do appreciate your support.